If you're getting to a point at 40, 50, or 60 where there's this question of whether it's working, the biggest downfall is to blame yourself and to think you're a failure and to think, oh, I blew this.
Yeah.
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into our second act with Paige and Silka. I'm happy to welcome Daryl Gurney back to our program today to discuss how to make some serious decisions in your life if you're at that stage of perhaps leaving a relationship. Daryl, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me, Silver.
By just a way of quick introduction, if you have missed some of our previous segments, Daryl is a best-selling author. He's the founder of The Back 40 and a career, life, and business reinvention coach. Among other things, Daryl, right?
Yeah.
You're a spiritual counselor?
Licensed spiritual counselor, yes.
Terrific. Well, and so that, you're the perfect person to talk to today about these very difficult decisions that a lot of us after 50 face. I mean, the divorce rate is 1 in 4 marriages after 50 splits up. There's reasons for that. We don't want to necessarily talk about those reasons other than that there's an awakening that happens in a lot of people when you realize that there isn't that much time left. So how do we acknowledge, that these are yearnings inside us, and how do we reconcile that?
Well, first off, it takes a lot of courage because comfort zones are comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And so, when one has, established themselves in their home and their finances and, kind of the way it is with their husband or their wife, it takes a lot of courage to even listen to that inner voice.
Right.
That says, I don't know that this is me. And usually what happens is after the kids have moved out, because again, we've got so many distractions when we get on this train of relationship, having kids and building things, right?
Right.
And you can't help but either listen to the voice and at least be willing to explore it, or in some way or another try to kill the voice and self-medicate.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much guilt and questioning and that goes along with these decisions to perhaps, leave your marriage, leave your relationship. I went through it, of course. I left a marriage after 50. A lot of my friends did, and I mean, no marriage is perfect, obviously. And in no way, shape or form, do I want to advocate divorce. But there is something about if you're dead inside.
Yeah, and let me ask you, so, you experienced that deadness and you probably chewed on this a good long while, didn't you?
Oh, I did. At least 10 years.
And was it an easy decision?
No, of course not. When I finally made the decision, it was easy because, you have that aha moment, but it was a long time in coming.
Right. And so not necessarily an easy decision, and you didn't even know that you were making the right decision, did you?
Oh, gosh, no.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's the first thing, as with anything, in life, especially for people after 50, because what happens as we get older, 40, 50, 60, is we become very reticent to take risks. We don't want to fall on our face. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to look like we don't know, because we're supposed to know by now, right?
Right.
That's one of the messages in The Back 40, the upcoming book, and the work that we do is really starting to empower, people at 40, 50, 60 to be willing to be curious again, to not already know who they are or how women are or how men are, because your possibilities just start to close.
Yep.
And then also to start empowering people after 40, 50, 60 to play first. In other words, don't wait till you have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to relationships, and that inner voice is starting to, speak itself. inside of the context of the back 40, we say that the first half of life was just R&D anyhow. And we say across the board, your career, relationships, everything was simply so that you could learn who you really are. What your real passions are, your proclivities, your tendencies. Now, guess what? We get together with people at 20, 25, 30, whatever, for a lot of reasons, okay? The only thing is we're still in our R&D stage, according to this philosophy. And what does that mean? Well, that doesn't mean as you get older and you're with that person that it's not going to work. It may work great. And if you're getting to a point at 40, 50, or 60 where there's this question of whether it's working, the biggest downfall is to blame yourself and to think you're a failure and to think, oh, I blew this.
Yeah.
And that's I think a lot of times why people end up staying is because of this whole self-condemnation, idea versus, well, what if that relationship was R&D? And what if you've now had an opportunity to learn more about who you are, what you're really like? Because you can't learn who you are in isolation.
Right, exactly.
That's why we call it relationship. Who am I in relationship to you?
Exactly. Well, and there is something to be said about, being in that constant search for happiness, and we all deserve to be happy, be that through another individual, through a relationship, or what we do. And I guess one of the messages that why it's important for me to talk about, because I get these questions all the time doing this show and talking to friends, is giving yourself, permission to find happiness, that we all go through this, that you're not alone, that the search for meaning and purpose in life, this is very normal at our age. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, of course. And I think it's becoming more and more prevalent as, people give themselves the room to step outside of the standard societal structures that kind of we all grew up in. I grew up in the South where it was like, man, I remember in the 60s and early 70s, if somebody was divorced, it was like, that was like a scarlet letter,
Yep.
right? And I think as, society and humans are moving towards more and more knowledge of self and self-expression, then it comes down to, look, can we grow together and be a contribution to each other becoming our fullest self?
Right.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for right now. The only thing that I hate to see is when people are courageous enough to make the decision to move on, if that's what there is to do, for them to then stop and have it that, okay, relationships just don't work for me, or I just don't do relationships well.
Yeah.
And again, that's why in the back 40 we say, hey, what if that was all practice?
Yeah.
What if you really don't know how men are?
Yeah.
What if you really don't know how women are? And all you've got is all this past stuff shaping your mindset. That's why what we're doing in the back 40 is cleaning up the mindset. We're brainwashing. We're washing off that brain, everything that people think they know, and the wisdom that they've gained that is keeping them in prison.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great point. And Daryl, we're coming to the end of our segment. You made a good point right here. And one of the things I want to leave with is, especially on this channel on YouTube, there are so many jaded people that, find a platform to express their anger, it's almost scary sometimes to see, what you do in your mind or how you lost hope. And this is something that we really want to bring back. I don't know what the answers are. There are no easy answers.
Here's kind of my philosophy, or the philosophy here in the back 40, is that if the first half hasn't set you up, or well, and again, there's a process in the Back 40, the book. There's a process by which you really look at your past as R&D, and you can see that R&D is pointing you to what you came here to be and what you came here to do, and it's pointing you to more openness. But a lot of times what happens is unprocessed, undistinguished as R&D, people's past becomes something that they make decisions on about the way the world is, and like I said, they close in. And I would just invite everyone to go to theback40.com/free and grab our top 10 tips for a radical second half. And it is radical to think that your first half didn't totally shape and stain your second half, and that your second half has anything possible available for you. That's radical.
Well, and I love exploring it. It makes perfect sense to me. Obviously, we'll link to all of your information. I'll run the graphics for the Back 40, and we'll see you on our next segment of Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.